What is up, wrestling fans? We are live. How's it going, everybody?
Welcome to the Two Bros Wrestling Show.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Kevin, what is happening, my brother?
Oh, my friend, it is a non-pay-per-view Sunday, and non-pay-per-view Sundays are going to be hard to come by over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to talk about what is going down with Clash of Champions 1 week from tonight.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. What is going on in the wrestling world? Because you're going to have to bring me up to speed because my wrestling consumption this week has been through What Culture Wrestling and Wrestle Talk. I've got about 15 minutes of wrestling news that has tried to catch me up on an entire week between those two news sites. So I'm hoping you can fill in the gaps for me, brother.
Well, I'm waiting to open up. Nope, there it is. I hear it.
There it is. Oh, I'm not even. Oh, there we go. Opening bell. Here we go.
All right, it's September the 20th, and it's the news for the week. And it's not been a great bit of time, the week, or
Whoa.
I guess the match just ended. I'm sorry, Doug. I must.
Is that a DQ? What just happened?
Now my phone's ringing. All right. So Teddy Hart, the troubled member of the Hart family, had a tough time this past week. He was arrested again in Richmond, Virginia, and he was booked on the 10th of September. And according to PW Insider, he was found guilty of being in possession of Schedule 3 narcotics. The court records indicate that Hart served 10 days in jail, so he just got out, stemming from a March 4th arrest.
Oh.
So earlier in the year, he got, arrested. He served his time, got out, immediately got himself rearrested. So the records list that his arrest in Richmond now has him scheduled for another hearing to see if he goes back to jail on October 13th. He faces charges of a felony. And he's been accused also in the last month of choking his former girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
Those charges have been dropped, but yeah, Teddy is famously more talented than he is responsible, and every chance the man has ever had, he has pretty much thrown away, which is a shame because if you've never seen Teddy work, not only does he have that Hart DNA, he has a flair that is unique to himself, and a talented but troubled individual who has more troubles upcoming, unfortunately, for all those involved. But also, Doug, the WWE is apparently exploring some options outside of Thunderdome. I know that you love the dystopian look of the Thunderdome.
The tribunal that is the Thunderdome. Yes.
Not that they won't continue it, but as we discussed here last week, that lease that they have on the Amway Center, the arrangement ends at the end of next month, which is one reason why they moved the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view up. Again, we talked about that last week. Mm-hmm. Now, there is talk, though, that beyond that, WWE is currently considering and exploring the option of doing outdoor shows once the Thunderdome residency ends. Reports are they're considering traveling for these shows, primarily through the South, which would guarantee them a better chance at nicer and warmer weather as we go through the fall and winter. And the way that they would do it, supposedly, if this ends up happening, is that they would go to a city and then they would film both Raw and then later SmackDown in that city so that they wouldn't have the cost associated with two traveling road shows, particularly at a time when you can't keep those crews moving on for live events. So I'm going to presume that if they go this route, Doug, it's going to be probably similar to what we're seeing in AEW with the socially distanced outdoor shows. So obviously stay tuned. Once we get any confirmation on that, we'll let you know one way or the other. Also this week, I know we don't talk ratings a lot, but I think this is kind of a relevant thing to maybe mention in our news segment, is that this past Monday night was the first of the season that Raw has had to deal with the competition of Monday Night Football. And even though the ratings tumbled as you'd expect they normally do in a 3-hour show, by the time to get to that third hour, they actually hung fairly steady up against the competition of football. Obviously, much like any other sport and wrestling there for a while too, things are different in the world of football and the pandemic. And so in a shortened season, this is, they were delayed in getting started. So WWE hasn't had to worry about that NFL competition. But if night one is any indication, maybe they don't have any concerns like they normally do during football season, as the NFL numbers were way off for a Monday night football game.
So is the
Yeah,
NFL doing like the empty stadium thing too, similar to what WWE, what all wrestling's doing, or do they have limited fans in attendance? How is that working for them? They're like baseball. They're piping in like fan reactions to stuff too, right?
I actually I'm not sure. I am a baseball fan, not a football guy. I have seen a little bit of the NBA playoffs to know that there's no fans in attendance at an NBA game. I'm not sure what route that the NFL is taking. Obviously, they play in the biggest venues of any of the sports we're talking about right now. So if they were to do socially distanced shows, they would probably have a much easier time than the other sports would at managing such a thing. But I'm not really sure, Doug.
I don't know. I was just wondering because I mean I know the Daly's place is a very small piece of the Jaguars stadium, and we're seeing fans there because I will always find a way to bring it back around to AEW. So,
Nicely done, nicely done.
and I've seen the stadium now since we had the stadium, not the Stadium Stampede. What wasn't the Stadium Stampede match? That was what it was called, wasn't it?
I think so, yes. And they fought out into the stadium from their little amphitheater.
Yeah, so sounds very Dusty Rhodes, the Stadium Stampede, but it seems like at least NFL teams could have like socially distanced. I mean, especially like what is it, the place in Texas where the Cow Rangers, Cowboys play. That's like the largest stadium, right? That's where WrestleMania was. It holds like 90,000 people. So
yes, where the Cal Ranger cheerleaders,
Go Sports. I'm trying to catch up on wrestling, and I have questions this week, man.
You do, about something I know nothing about, but I did know that they were not the Cal Rangers. But
all right, Go Sports, go Mariners. Mariners.
We do have a bit of injury news too, Doug. I don't know if you heard this or not in some of the updates you got, but Ivar. If you're a Viking Raiders fan out there, or like me, like to still in your mind think of him as War Machine, Ivar is out, and for a significant period of time, he suffered an injury on Raw in the first Raw of the month of September, and the injury to his shoulder is going to, I think it was a torn labrum, and it's going to require surgery, and that is going to put him on the shelf for maybe up to a year. So what they do. Obviously with the tag team, you're going to have to put that on ice for a while. So it'll be interesting to see if Eric has anything with the solo push. I know that they've played with him a little bit in the Raw Underground setup that they have, but definitely a tough break for this tag team that we're still kind of getting their footing underneath them in WWE. And then, Doug, the last bit of news I have, and it actually is news that will relate to our schedule as well, is that this week Triple H announced the next date for NXT TakeOver. This would be NXT TakeOver 31, and it is going to be 2 Sundays from now. So next Sunday we'll be going live after Clash of Champions, and without being able to do a preview show, Doug, in 2 more weeks, NXT TakeOver 31. So
wait, the takeover is going to be on a Sunday instead of a Saturday, where takeovers traditionally are.
The last couple that weren't also taking place on the same weekend as the one that took place during SummerSlam weekend, obviously SummerSlam had Sunday tied up, but the last couple of NXT pay-per-views they've done on Sunday nights, because I think they found that even NXT was getting a bigger audience on Sundays than on a Saturday night.
All right, back-to-back pay-per-views. Damn you.
Pay-per-views.
Damn you. Programming.
And speaking of pay-per-view, Doug, we got one coming next week, and we can.
I do want to touch on a bit of news that I did see that you didn't mention. It's probably not on your radar, but Sasha Banks apparently has at least a minor role in the upcoming season of The Mandalorian. If anybody's not seen the trailer for that, and if speculation is to believe it's more than a minor role, she'll be playing Sabine Wren. Possibly, I'm skeptical about that, but she could possibly be playing Sabine Wren, which is an animated character from the Star Wars Rebel series, who is a Mandalorian and once wielded the Darksaber. So I think that's very interesting for Sasha Banks, even if it's just a minor role, to be in such a huge Disney Plus show and be part of a Star Wars franchise. And I think that's awesome. Even if it's just a matter of, I would love to see her as Sabine Wren, but we will see. And for all those non-Star Wars fans or Star Wars adjacent people, there's no relation between Sabine and Kylo Ren.
So you just confused all of the Cow Ranger fans out there.
It's okay. So let's jump into the main event. I just wanted to talk about, that's the thing I do know that happened in wrestling this week, because I saw the new Mandalorian trailer and I'm like, wait, that's Sasha Banks, and she looks.
That's big news. I mean, I hadn't heard that, and regardless of whether or not she wants to dabble in Hollywood or if it's a one-time thing, that's quite an opportunity to be in such a high-profile series. So kudos to Sasha Banks.
Absolutely, she is featured pretty prominently in the trailer. I mean, you cannot miss her. But anyway, main event time. Let's talk about this pay-per-view that I'm really confused about.
The Clash of Champions, Doug, is just next week, so you better quickly get unconfused because it's coming, ready or not.
So I have a list of matches here. I think. I know we talked briefly about this. We just want to blow through the matches, undercard, and work our way up.
Yeah, let's talk some of the undercard matches. Obviously, it's right there in the title, Clash of Champions. This is the one pay-per-view a year, folks, where every title is supposed to be defended. And, of course, we're getting ready to go through a list that does not include every title. So you can very well presume that there are several matches that are going to have to be thrown on last minute, probably a couple that are thrown on the pre-show, because we're not we're several titles short, Doug, from the matches that are confirmed anyway of having a full slate.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at here. Just 7 matches. WWE has gotten very good about having very tight pay-per-views recently. So maybe we see 7 very tight. 7 probably. This probably goes to, I'm saying, probably at least 8. I don't know.
I don't think yet we have. I don't think we have anything for the Intercontinental title. I don't think we have anything yet for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and I'm not really sure with the Cruiserweight title being almost now the NXT Cruiserweight title. I don't know that it would count. As far as them saying that every championship is going to be defended. Yeah. Obviously, even though they consider NXT a third brand now, typically NXT is excluded from the Raw and SmackDown rosters when it comes to considering those sorts of things, because that obviously would get very unwieldy if you try to throw all the NXT championships on there too, and they do have their takeover coming up. And I do think that we could probably safely say that 205 in the Cruiserweight Championship is now as more an NXT show than it is anything else.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. So what's first on your list?
I say let's start tag team championships, because I think that the Raw tag team championship match is one of the ones that was added on most recently, and probably is one of the ones that is going to, I'd say, likely be on the pre-show, or could be an opening contest or a popcorn match at some point, because it's not really like it's a big hot feud, and I don't expect there to be any title change unless you think differently, Doug, because it's the Street Profits who are the Raw tag team champions, and they will be facing one of 3 teams, and that is going to be decided on Monday night. It's going to be Seth Rollins and Murphy taking on Andrade and Angel Garza, and then the team of Humberto Carrillo and Dominic Mysterio.
So it's not like a 4 corners tornado tag from what I'm looking at here. It's not all these teams at once. It's going to still be broken down, and we're going to get a tag team versus tag team, right?
Yes, we're going to get tag team versus tag team. Do you have any thoughts with those 3 teams? Who you think might be logically who would make the most sense to be slotted into that match after Monday Night Raw tomorrow?
Wait, the Street Profits are the champions. No, I'm really not sure. I mean, I can see, because I was looking at this list here, and I can see this breaking down with a Rollins Murphy and Humberto Carrillo and Dominic Mysterio kind of going at it. And then we have Andrade and Angel Garza actually going up against the Street Profits if it was like a 4 corners match like I was thinking here. But yeah, I'm saying the Street Profits, regardless of who their challenges are, the Street Profits continue to come out on top. I don't see a title change here.
Because to me, you look at the 3 teams that are up for this, and other than Humberto and Dominic, who obviously are not a tag team and haven't tag teamed.
Right.
So than them, the other two teams involved in this all have internal disputes going on right now.
Yeah.
So I think that whoever ends up facing the Street Profits not only will lose, they will use this spot tomorrow night on Raw to further a storyline at Clash of Champions as to Seth and Murphy breaking up, or the continued long breakup of Andrade and Angel Garza.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, no doubt about it. There's no reason for any of these teams that are ready to implode to take it from the Street Profits. So yeah. I'd say Street Profits got this one.
Oh, we got some comments. I was on another. Sorry, I was on another screen. We got a couple of comments. David Poole, where have you been? Walked into a store.
We were worried about you. We were worried,
brother. I really had. You were like our third man. We need a third screen to have you on screen with us. I have missed you, man.
And hey, he's mentioning a match. Let's just go to this one, because this is one that was just added yesterday.
Okay.
Doug, you and I were talking just a bit before we went on air. I said that we had a match that was added on Talking Smack yesterday. David's pointing out the one that got added, and that is the Intercontinental title match. That's right. It is the Intercontinental title match. It's the U.S. title then that isn't on the bill. I got my Intercontinental and U.S. confused, but this has been one that we could have predicted coming, because they've been going this direction for a while as to who the legitimate Intercontinental champion is. AJ obviously thinks that he got cheated by Jeff Hardy, and then of course Sammy just walks back in after several months thinking he's still the title holder.
Yeah, what's that?
And so this is going to actually be, in my mind, one of the highlights of this show, because all three men can work, all three men can fly and do some amazing things off that ladder. And the issue they got between them is tried and true and is very entertaining. So, Doug, who do you think comes out on top of a three-way ladder match when you got Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, and Sami Zayn?
I start to sound like a broken record after a while, but this is one of those matches where I say we win regardless of who actually walks away with the strap, because you've got Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, and Sami Zayn, three of my favorite wrestlers, going head to head here in a ladder match. I really don't think Jeff Hardy needs that many more ladder matches in his future. I mean, with everything that's happened to Matt with his last, hardcore match or not falls count anywhere, where Sammy nearly busted his head open off the concrete on AEW. Not Sami Zayn, but Sammy Guevara. But I think Hardy retains here after a lot of high spots, a lot of drama, a lot of oh my god, I can't believe they just did that. I say Hardy walks away with the strap.
I'm going to disagree with you here, and it may be less, a knowledgeable disagreement and more of a just wishful disagreement, in that I would love to see Sammy somehow weasel his way out of the match without earning it. I want to see him not earn it, but walk away with the championship as Jeff and AJ get in each other's way, and that makes the opening there for Sammy to I was going to say retain. I guess he really would be winning it, despite the fact he's got his own version of the belt. I'm going to go Sami Zayn.
I would love to see Sammy win and, like you say, retain. But, I think Sammy's probably got to do some penance now for taking COVID time off. And, regardless of what, the public face of WWE says, I think, if you're not Roman Reigns, you're going to have to do some penance for the time you've taken off during this COVID.
Say, Roman's not hurting too bad.
Not Roman Reigns.
Hey, see, Dave's with me. He's thinking Zayn on this one too.
See, we need to get him a link and send him next week. We'll have him on board too.
I think he would be excellent. He's a very knowledgeable wrestling fan, and
I am this week.
But I mean, you are right about all of us winning on this one. This will hopefully be saved for an appropriate spot on the card, that they're given enough time to do what they can do. That's the only thing I worry about when you have to have every title defended. If they were to shoehorn the U.S. belt, that's the one I was thinking of, not the Intercontinental, but the U.S. belt, as well as the Women's Championship. And now you're starting to look at 8 or 9 matches. It's either going to be a longer show than normal, or some of the matches are going to have to be quicker than normal. And I hope this is not one they shortchange, because this one's got money written all over it. let's do the other tag match, if you don't mind, because I think this is one that probably will be one of those that they could shorten if they need a little bit of time. And it's nothing against the 4 individuals involved here. It's just another one of those scenarios where I think the match is going to be a way to further a breakup, because you have Cesaro and Shinsuke, who are the champs, defending their SmackDown belts against Lucha House Party. And Lucha has been showing some divisions among the 3 members. It's not stated clearly which of the 3 members it's going to be, which of the 2 of those 3 is going to represent the team. But I'm figuring that amongst the 3, at the very least, you got to shoehorn in there Sin Cara, who is sort of becoming the heel in this scenario, making himself the heel by declaring himself the leader of this group. But I think that their troubles get in the way of their title chances, and that this is another retention.
That's the way I'd book it too. I have to agree 100% with you on this one. I haven't seen a lot of programming this week, but my recaps, lead me in the direction that those 3 are breaking up. If not this weekend, upcoming, soon after they lose this round.
Well, and speaking of things, Doug, you haven't seen, when was the last time you actually saw Lucha House Party even win a match?
Man, I don't even remember the last time I saw Lucha House Party wrestle at this point.
Which is exactly why having them walk away with a belt makes 0 sense, and obviously not the direction they're going to go. So I figure this is another pre-show match, or another let's make up some time matches by having it fall under 10 minutes. Then we're getting to some of the bigger matches, other than the triple threat we just talked about. They've invested a little bit in Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, more than I would have expected as the women's tag team champions. But they're defending those belts against the Riot Squad, who have had a good few weeks of their own since they reunited. They've actually gotten a bit of a push here, and with so many matches, Doug, where I think that the champion is likely maintain and retain, I should say, I think this might be one where they switch those belts. Even though Shayna and Nia haven't had them that long, I still think that Shayna is destined for a singles run. And I think that the Riot Squad may walk away here, the new champs.
So I haven't seen a lot of product in the past couple of weeks, and I haven't really seen any buzz about this yet. But this would be a perfect way to spin off, much like with the Lucha House Party breaking up and internal feuds starting there. I think this is a good way, since they both really don't like each other anyway, and it's a marriage of convenience. If they lose these belts, that's the straw that breaks that back, and then you get Shayna and forgot her name, Nia Jax.
Yeah, and a feud, yeah.
Into a program, and then maybe put some shine back on Shayna through all that, or maybe Vince isn't too happy with Shayna and put some really good shine on Nia through a program like that. I'm not sure which way that program would go, but I think it's a good start to a program if they lose those belts, considering they never really liked each other, and it's again a marriage of convenience. It's got them where they are now.
The only thing that that's the way I would book it for sure. The only thing that gives me some pause is the fact that, fortunately, we've already had the implosion recently of Bayley and Sasha, or otherwise we would really be loaded on this card with teams that are ready to go at each other's throats. So do they pull the trigger on several things at once, or what breaks down here? Nia and Shayna, Seth and Murphy, Andrade and I just lost his name. But anyway, you know what I'm saying here. It's like there's a lot of this very similar storylines going into this, so they might have to hold off just a little bit on a team breakup with one of these, or otherwise they could get a little samey.
Well, historically speaking, WWE will hotshot a program. I'm surprised they've taken this long with Bayley and Banks, but I'm happy about that. But I'm not sure how long they can hold back on the rest of these, because they started bubbling a lot of these dissension in the ranks storylines recently. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But
so you think that Riot Squad walk out of this one?
I could see that. I'm going to go with you. Riot Squad walks out, and we see maybe not to the point where Baszler or Jax murder each other like Bailey's did Sasha, but something along those lines would be in the works after the loss.
Well, Doug, I think that next, probably what I would do is I'd say looking at this list of matches, let's go. We only have one of the women's titles currently on the card, and I think this one might be an easy one to predict. And you can feel free to disagree with me here, but I can't imagine you would, because we got Bailey defending the women's championship from SmackDown against Nikki Cross, who has been great as a character, but we all know that the feud that is brewing right now is obviously Sasha getting her revenge. So I think that revenge is maybe better played with Bailey as the champion,
taking that championship from Bailey, or at least attempting to take that championship from Bailey. I agree. Bailey will retain this week, next weekend, and she'll keep that championship. And we're going to get that program with Bailey and Banks. This is just a pit stop along the way. This may go a little bit to further, if nothing else, it may go a little bit to further the whole Alexa Bliss thing that's bubbling up with her pseudo sister Abigail thing that's cooking.
The Fiend.
And all that. Although, and again, I haven't seen a lot of program this week, but on one of the recap shows, I saw somebody mention that how maybe one of the announcers had mentioned that poor Nikki Cross doesn't have like a mean bone in her body or something like that. And I just want to point out, Nikki Cross was a founding member and the only female member of Sanity. And to make that, kind of make a statement like that, and I'm paraphrasing, but to make a statement like that kind of, forget some of the recent WWE history.
And she played crazy extremely well too. I mean, she did extremely well. By the way, dude, you disappeared for a few seconds there, so I don't know. You are back, but I could hear you, but then you were in a little spinning circle. Unless you can do that now, which is kudos to you. That's very impressive.
My mutant abilities finally manifested, and I can spin like a circle.
That's really awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's Bailey and Sasha. They've taken a long time telling the story, and like you, Doug, very happy that they have. Long-term booking is great. When there's still juice in the feud, there's still juice in this feud. So yeah, sorry, Nikki. Bailey goes on with that one.
Yeah.
So really now, Doug, we're down to the world title matches as they were. Let's start first with the one that's the easiest to predict, and that's the WWE Universal Championship. We got the recently turned heel Roman Reigns. I guess right now he's on the verge of heel, but when you're with Paul Heyman, you're heel. And they did some subtle work on Friday night of just some looks and things. Man, Roman, I never would have thought that I would be so complimentary of Roman Reigns. But if there has ever been a character that matches the real man's capabilities and personality, he's found the right role right now for him. With Paul at his side, just the glances he was giving his cousin as they teamed together on Friday night were just spot on perfect.
Again, haven't seen the entire show, but I've seen the highlight reels, and this is the heel Reigns I always wanted. I know 1,000 other marks just like me, just like you. This is the Reigns we've always wanted. Don't force feed him to us. Let him do his thing and let him come natural to it. And this is what we're getting. And poor Jey Uso is going to get murdered, just like Bailey murdered Sasha Banks. Roman Reigns is going to murder his cousin to solidify himself as a heel. The only thing that could put him more over as a heel is if he, at some point grabs Jay's bloodied, battered self, forces it into a camera, and says something about how he did this for the family, and puts himself even that much more over as a heel.
I don't think there's anyone out there would be dumb enough to take the bet that Jey Uso is going to be your next Universal Champion. But I love the storyline. We know he's the sacrificial lamb, and we know the outcome, but I like it. Despite all that, normally I don't like when I know that the outcome is predetermined. I guess they're all predetermined, but you know what?
Exactly.
What? Don't ruin it for me, man. But seriously, it's like no one thinks that he has a shot. It's just how bad is he going to get destroyed? And is it going to still be a tweener Reigns coming out of there? Or is he just going to go full on nuclear assault? That's the only question in anyone's mind. But he's definitely going to walk out with the Universal Championship. It's just how heelish will he walk out?
I don't think it's a question. Maybe it's supposed to be a question, but to me, it's Jay Uso is the ultimate enhancement talent in this situation to
He's your
totally
cousin. Yeah, he's your
totally
cousin.
exactly. I mean, you cannot be more heel than
That was going through my mind too, Dave.
it's real to all of us, brother. Seriously, we need a third screen with you on it, man.
You all didn't see on Friday night, and Doug, I know you said you just saw highlights. Right now, they are definitely doing the subtle thing because, as I mentioned, Roman and Jay teamed together in the main event, and Roman just shot him some looks from time to time. But obviously, Paul Heyman is one of the best mouthpieces that any talent could ever have, and they did a segment right before that where they let Paul Heyman narrate the segment that was telling the story of the cousins. And so here's these pictures of them as little children together. And then he goes on to talk about the Anoa'i family and all the traditions. And they showed, highlights of, all the way back to, the prince all the way up through Umaga and more modern day and Offensica, and just Paul told the whole story, but then told about the ascent of Roman, and he, of course, your tribal chief, and he played it all up, and then in a very brilliant Paul Heyman backhanded subtle dig, and Jey Uso is also gone on to some note with much help from his brother.
Brother, I did see this, yes.
And I thought, man, what a brilliant, sneaky heel line. I love everything about where it's going, even though where it's going is a 1-2-3 for Jey Uso. I can't wait to see how they get there.
Yeah, poor Jay's getting murdered. I mean, he is going to do the job so well. And an interesting side note, since the Reigns, at least I think I pointed this out, even down to like the logos on their shirts, the show up, win, leave, and the eat, sleep, conquer, repeat kind of thing. And having Paul Heyman, I think it was Meltzer that has I guess has talked to his contacts, and forgive me if I'm wrong, because I got this from either What Culture or Wrestle Talk, but they were quoting, and I really think it was Meltzer, about how the whole dynamic with Lesnar and Paul Heyman is they're friends. They've always been friends all the way back to Lesnar's debut back in the early 2000s. The dynamic with Reigns and Paul is different because they're not friends. Reigns doesn't like him. It's again like a marriage of convenience, and so I think that'll be when the time comes for him to make that face turn. Paul probably will be a sacrificial lamb for that, but I think we've got plenty of time before that goes, and Roman is completely in control of this relationship. So we might even get more heat if Reigns turns on Paul at some point down the road, and we make Heyman a very sympathetic character just to push him over that much more as a heel.
And maybe by that time, enough time will have passed, and a face Brock Lesnar comes back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways they could go with this, and what gave them the ability to go so many directions with this, and that was simply making a little switch in the Roman Reigns character that has been needed for years. And you've given yourself a world of possibilities now as to where you could go that you couldn't have gone before with Roman as he was. So, the next step is this Sunday, and I expect good things out of that. And that really leaves us to what I think will be the final match, because it does have a little more intrigue as far as who your winner is. And we have had a program that is dated back for some time now, and gone through a series of matches and back and forth injury angles between the champ, the WWE champ, Drew McIntyre, and arguably the hottest heel in the business this year, Randy Orton. This, Doug, is an ambulance match. So, the only way that you win this contest is putting your opponent in the back of an ambulance, and not just in the back of the ambulance, as you know, you got to shut that door.
And here's the thing with that. This along with like the injury angles, fractured skull, and all that good fun stuff that McIntyre has allegedly received during this feud so far, is the perfect out for McIntyre to lose that title while actually never suffering a pinfall or submission or anything like that. I think somebody had pointed out, I guess there was a Strowman Reigns match a few years ago where Reigns goes for a spear, ends up in the ambulance, and the doors just shut.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember when it was or what pay-per-view, but yes, absolutely remember that. The thing about gimmick matches, when I hear that you put that kind of stipulation, an ambulance match is not like, cage matches or some of the ones you see more often. When you go and put an odd stipulation and not a last man standing, not a cage, that probably means it's going to factor somehow into the finish. And an ambulance match is one of those matches you can lose without really getting yourself beat.
Yeah.
And I think that gives you, further beef with, the outcome. And you and I both predicted incorrectly, but we both predicted on SummerSlam that the title was going to change and that Drew had held it for a good amount of time, and that Randy was hot, and that there was more money in Drew with the chase. Mm-hmm. And I think they, to my surprise, we both were wrong, but I don't think we're going to continue to be wrong. I think, particularly with the stipulation, this is where they make that switch. And I also think it makes sense because, up to this point, one of the reasons I picked Sammy earlier and with my fantasy booking is that I'm looking at this list and I don't see a lot of titles really changing, being time for some of these championships. This is one where I can see that they can make that switch, and that's why I think they will.
I agree. And again, with the gimmick match as it is, it gives Drew the opportunity to lose without actually losing. And whether it's a Claymore into the ambulance and the door, or shuts the doors or whatever, but it will give him the opportunity to lose without losing. No pinfall, no submission. Probably some sneaky heel shenanigans to get those doors shut. And Orton is your new champion.
And let's not forget, Keith Lee has hung around this feud over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Like, he has been involved with a mini feud with Randy, and then he and his best bud there had a little blow up this Monday night on Raw, and had at each other. So I can also see with the stipulation that this could be an opportunity for Keith Lee to get involved, try to help his friend, have it backfire, throw fuel on that potential feud. I don't see a Keith Lee turn by any means, but I do think he gets involved.
This is what I see eventually. We keep that belt on Randy till January. Edge healed, comes back, wins the Royal Rumble, and then we see the program with Edge Orton going into WrestleMania next year, and belt until then.
All the more reason I can see Keith Lee getting involved, because you can't go towards a direction of Orton and Edge if you still have Drew chasing the title. So you have to spin him off into something new. And if it's you cost me my opportunity, or I told you I didn't need your help kind of feud, which is what they've already planted the seed with, I can see it definitely going in a direction like that for all involved.
Yep, and there it is. I think we just booked the hell out of this pay-per-view.
Hey, I will say this, that I can be a little hard on WWE with the way that they have their themed pay-per-views, because to me, Hell in a Cell was a match that was, when nothing else worked, you had no choice but to put 2 men in a cell. Same for Elimination Chamber, things like that. I don't think that, it's time for the TLC pay-per-view, so now we're going to have a TLC match, or it's Extreme Rules, so everything's – I don't like those in general. I like that when you use the gimmicks sparingly. I do, and I have always liked the concept of Clash of Champions. I think all your pay-per-views really should be a lot of championship matches and a couple of feuds decided, but to dedicate an entire card to all your championships being defended is a concept I've always liked, and so I'm looking forward to this card. I think it'll be a good show. Obviously, we've like you said, we booked it, but if you look at the matches on paper, most of them, other than really the tag matches and the women's match, they all have a little bit of history behind them, a little bit of juice behind them. So I think it'll deliver.
I do too. I do too. I'm actually looking forward to it, even though I'm in pay-per-view overload, going to be in pay-per-view overload again. So
At least this time they gave us a whole month. Like last time they gave us a week. This time they've given us a whole month. So I'm almost ready for a pay-per-view now.
I'm still trying to catch up on the weekly programming at this point. But Kevin, if that's all we got, let's head to the big finish, brother.
Let's go on to that big finish, Doug. Let's start with the embarrassment of the week. I don't know if you did see Raw or not, and if you did, that's where my embarrassment of the week comes from, and it has nothing to do with I know things happen, so I don't want to disparage the talent involved because I'm a fan of both women, but because of the women that were involved is why it was such an awkward embarrassment. Things go wrong. It went wrong big time when it came to Asuka defending the belt on Monday night against Mickie James. Mickie's a legend. Sure enough, going to be a Hall of Famer when she's ready to hang it up. Asuka probably will also be a Hall of Famer somewhere farther down the line. And this year, Asuka has honestly, I think, had the best matches she's had yet on the main roster. And so definitely high on both females. It just didn't click on Monday night. And they had a few clunky spots in the match. And to make matters worse, then there was that convoluted finish where the referee called for the bell, even though at the time Mickie had Asuka in a pin. And if you go to slow motion, because I did, I rewound it like, wait a minute, something about that just looked weird. And you could see the shock on Mickie James's face as she looked at the ref like, what are you doing? But the referee called for the bell, and he was under the impression that the match was supposed to end with the Asuka lock, and he apparently, anyway, the reports are Mickie was doing such a great job of selling that they were worried about how she actually was. But she was actually in control. Asuka didn't really have on the Asuka lock, and in fact, Asuka's shoulders were down, and suddenly the ref calls for the bell, and everyone's confused as to the decision, and Mickey's just looking at the guy, and then they announce that the match is over because Mickie James can't continue. And when she was just basically staring at him. So it was really awkward. Yeah.
And that's basically what I'd read about this, that Mickie was selling so well that, the ref thought there was a legit injury. And I guess hot off Hardy's, injury at the AEW pay-per-view, there's an abundance of caution going on with the talent. So
and I'm all for that. I mean, you definitely need to look out for your talent. It's just one of those unfortunate scenarios where, through no one's fault of their own, when you're on live TV and you're not doing the pre-tape matches like they have done for much of the summer, you're out there without a net. And when that stuff happens, it didn't make anyone look good. So hopefully those talented ladies get a do-over and get a more decisive outcome and a cleaner match, because it was actually fairly clunky considering the folks involved up to that point. So I know they have better in them, and hopefully they get that opportunity on a better platform.
Hope so.
Doug, did you have anything that you saw this week that caught your eye as perhaps embarrassing?
Good, bad, or indifferent. Anything I do call out, because again, the only product I've actually had time to see, and it wasn't until Saturday, was Dynamite. So I'm going to sit back and not make any calls this week because they would be heavily AEW Dynamite or influenced by the brief synopsis and clip shows I've seen throughout the week. So I'm just gonna sit back and hear what you have to say this week.
Well, that was my embarrassment, but I'm gonna go then match of the week, because you can talk to me about this one, because my match of the week came from the one show you saw. And I go back and folks, I watch these Two Bros Wrestling shows after we do them, just to critique ourselves, to see what we can do better, to see how the format's holding in there, and yeah, I know that I'm a mark for technical wrestling. A lot of times, if it's a technical match, there's a very good chance that it's going to be high up on my radar as match of the week. And I don't ever mean to discount the fact that there's many different flavors of wrestling, hardcore. Even though comedy and wrestling to me is probably my least favorite, I can't say that I'm not ever entertained by a match that is meant for pure comedy. So this week I'm able to give some variety and say that even though I'm more of a technical guy than I am a hardcore guy, that main event of AEW Dynamite took the time-honored tradition of the backlot brawl that we've seen 1,000 times through the years of wrestlers fighting in and amongst cars and going through windshields and things like that. And just when you think that you've seen all there is to see in that type of match and there's not going to be anything about it that could surprise you, well, this is about as good as you're ever going to see it done. In fact, Doug, Dave Meltzer, this is the first, and I'm not even the biggest Meltzer fan, but this is the first 5-star match that Meltzer has given during the pandemic era. So he agreed with me, I guess, that what you were seeing was not your run-of-the-mill TV match, not your run-of-the-mill hardcore match, but from that frog splash from one vehicle to the other, to the finishing move through the plywood on the back of the pickup, to Sue and her minivan flipping them off at the end. I mean, this match, you couldn't have asked for anything more, and they beat the living crap out of each other and really put their bodies at risk as well to entertain. Mick Foley, the king of hardcore, and definitely a guy who's more plugged into WWE because his son works there and his history there, went online to say, as someone who knows a bit about hardcore matches, that's as good as it gets. JR, who's seen a few in his time, said it was the best one he'd ever called. And I had all these great technical matches in my mind that I was going to plug into this spot, and then that match came on and blew me away.
See, having seen only, Dynamite this week and, just clips of everything else, I would have totally called that, but I thought it was very unfair because I was like, okay, Kevin's going to call me for just being a total AEW mark because I just watched Dynamite and there's, all this other wrestling out there. So, but I agree, man, that match was amazing. I'm not like you. I'm much more of a fan of technical wrestling. I'm much more a fan of the in-ring action. And I don't call it garbage wrestling because to disparage it or anything, but I've heard other wrestlers actually refer to it as that. That hardcore style and everything is just not my thing. But I mean, it was, my God, it was a great match. It really was.
And, I am actually all for that type of match when it is warranted. I guess what I always have had the problem with, and we touched on it just a bit ago, it's Extreme Rules. All right, it's the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, so every match has to have some extreme stipulation. That waters down the concept. Back when we were younger watching this product, those kind of things only happened when men could not contain their anger. The ring couldn't contain the feud. It's gone beyond titles. It's gotten personal, and there's nothing left to do than to put a cage around them, to put a chain between them, and not just because, hey, it's July, it's time, And this was one that they didn't hotshot. This was a blow off to a feud, a blood feud, a personal feud, one that's been raging for a while. And that's how you blow off that kind of thing. That's when it gets escalated to the level of blood and guts and glass and all the things they did. You don't just do that on a random Wednesday night with just 4 individuals that have no personal issue. It needs to be, you disrespected my mom's minivan.
Right. And I think Santana or Ortiz, since they came to AEW, have worked almost more as a comedy act themselves. And maybe now we get to see a character shift to a more serious Santana and Ortiz, and become those hardcore, not wrestling guys, but that hardcore tag team that they can be, and maybe set on that path to go after some belts. Because I remember when they first came in, we saw them in Charleston, in the crowd with the Bucks, and we're like, okay, here it's on. They're going to have this program. It never really worked out, and they kind of became like, a comedy duo within the Inner Circle. I mean, well, the Inner Circle at times can be a comedy act as a whole too. But maybe this starts to turn a corner now with the Inner Circle.
When they were LAX in Impact, there was nothing funny about them. They were, portrayed as dangerous men, and they obviously, from what everyone saw on Wednesday night, that is in them. And I would love to see a more serious push on their behalf in a more serious turn, because there's no reason for them to not be more around the world title scene than they have been. And hopefully this helps to elevate both. I mean, really, everyone was elevated. They took the loss, but there's no way that you watch that match without respect for all four of those guys and what they put their bodies through for our entertainment. Excellent match.
Absolutely. I will not disagree with that.
Doug, my performer of the week. I had several that I had thought of, but and this also alludes to something that we sort of hit on earlier. But I'm a fan of Sami Zayn's, always have been. Think his in-ring work is great. His comedy timing is perfect. His heel mannerisms are fantastic, because for a heel of his size, you're not supposed to be the bulldozer. You're supposed to be the weasel, and he plays that role so well. And for him just to show up, and I know we've seen it in wrestling before, but he's playing the role. He's playing the trope perfectly of, hey guys, what's been going on these last 4 or 5 months while I've been gone? And here I am. I'm still the champion because I never lost.
Right.
And going and getting all bent out of shape when the ring announcer announces him and fails to mention that he's the Intercontinental Champion, and he's like, has to go over to the ring announcer. He's like, I thought we talked about this last week. Just all that stuff. He's been great. And that's why, in some ways, I'm hoping, probably against logic and how I should have picked earlier, that he comes out on top in this feud next week, because I think him continuing as the Intercontinental Champion, giving some legitimacy around his bogus claim, would be fantastic. And I'll give a runner-up to Zelina Vega. We talked about her work before, but Monday, instead of being between her two men who just keep going at each other, she just said, screw you both. And I was excited about that, because you and I know, but I don't know that unless you've watched old school NXT, a lot of folks out there probably don't realize what a talent she is in the ring. So I'm hoping that that's the kickoff to her singles career and her women's career. And I think that that she could really be used on Monday nights in a wrestling role. And so I was excited about that too. I think both those performances this week were fantastic. Who did you like on AEW Dynamite this week, Doug?
About AEW Dynamite, Kevin. I love that the Bucks are going heel and throwing cash at Tony Khan now.
That was a great performance too. Yeah, you're right. That's a definite character shift that they're building there over the last couple of weeks.
We're getting Kenny going closer to Omega, and I was talking to a friend of mine at work, and she and I were having a conversation. We always thought it was going to be Hangman that turned on the Bucks, but Hangman has a very long, very very Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, to bring it back around to where I started tonight's show. But he has this redemption story to go through while everybody else goes full on heel in the Elite now. Hangman's going to go through a bit of a redemption arc, I do believe. So, it's going to be an interesting time for AEW. I'm excited.
I think that the Bucks actually could use the edge back to them. I think that much like Kenny, when the company's trying to get its feet out underneath it, I think that they all worked so hard to make sure that the other talent got over, that they forgot about the fact that one of the reasons many folks were tuning in was to see these teams and these wrestlers that they loved in New Japan and Ring of Honor and the Independents finally, rising to the top. And it hasn't really worked out that way, the way that they've booked themselves. So I think a great way to do it would be to go heel, give a new edge to the character. And, hey, you want to cheer us because we're so good, but we're going to make you boo us.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes, but I do like the way it's going. That all the Elite are gone or gone heel. I'm not sure when Cody is actually coming back, but Cody did a really good job of distancing himself from the Elite with the Nightmare Family, and moving in that direction. So now if we can just get the Dark Order, if we can get the Dark Order in order.
I agree. Yeah. That the Dark Order has never quite done it for me as a gimmick anyway. There's definitely potential there with some of the members, and I like that they have a female member, but there's apparently 99 of them out there since they're numbered, and she's 98, 99, something like that. So yeah, it's a little watered down for my taste, but I am hopeful though that with Mr. Brody Lee, holding the championship, the TNT championship, and the sort of side story you got with the Colt Cabana right now, which I am also enjoying. There's definitely possibilities there. I think they just need to, just like the old days with the NWO and things, like sometimes less is more, trim the fat a little bit, and it's going to mean more. But yeah, I guess that's a rant for another time.
You want a Dark Order wolf pack?
Yeah. Yeah.
Led by Colt Cabana, maybe Evil Uno.
They wrestle exclusively on Dark.
I'm down for that. I would love to see that. Oh my goodness, that is enough nonsense for tonight. People, it has been a pleasure talking to you about wrestling. We will be back after a pay-per-view next Sunday. We will not be live at 8, but as soon as Clash of Champions is over, we will be jumping on our laptops. Join us then. Hop online and find us. And
let's see how we do. Let's see how you do with your picks. Call us on it. If we just completely blew the predictions, let us know. We don't know what we're talking about.
Which is very true because I haven't seen a lot of product this week. But
thank you guys for tuning in, everybody.
It's always fun. Dave Poole, we will see you next week, brother.
That's right. You better be here.